Welcome to The Resistance, a game from Mark Walker, going to be published by Flying Pig Games. This is a dice and card game in which you play a French resistance leader of a cell fighting the Nazis during World War II. It's going to come in a box about this size. This is not final components, but it is going to have some tokens to track information. It comes with the dice you need, mission cards, and some other items that we'll take a look at. Now, I don't know when this is going to come to Kickstarter. The original plan was December, but it's probably going to get closer to January. So this is coming. Just once it's available on Kickstarter, we're going to let people know for sure. All right, so some items that you get here. You're going to get a bag of dice. It has 6 white dice, and you're going to have some blue dice, and then your administrative tokens. You get your rule book, you get your leaders, and I think I shifted the box too much, mixed up my cards a little bit, but you're going to get cards that are mission cards, some event cards, and special type item cards that you can purchase, and we'll take a look at how that all works together. So first of all, what is the goal? Well, you're going to have 3 to 5 players, and you're each going to be in charge of one of these cells, and the personality is going to have a skill that says, like this one here, Demolitions Expert, receive a 5 on a dice token per turn against one structure, and then a little background. It tracks your glory. You start with 0 glory, and the idea is you want to get through completing missions up to 12 glory or stealing glory from other players. And then you have recruits. You start with 6. That can go up and down. When you run out of recruits, you're out of the game. And basically the last person to have all recruits and everybody else has no recruits wins, or the first place person to 12 glory points wins. So even though you're all French cell resistance leaders, you're competing against each other to see who will be the most famous French resistant cell leader. Alright, so the way you're going to start your game is you're going to pick one of these characters that you think is interesting. There's 6 to choose from, but we'll go with this one here. It says aggressive for the skill. Gain a 6 token by forfeiting 1 resistance member. So there's a token in here that if I spend that ability and sacrifice a person, I'm going to gain basically like a little token that I can spend as like a dice roll. And we're going to show how the dice and roll works. So anyway, there's some tokens there. We also have in here a bunch of stuff. Ammo tokens, because there's some cards that require ammo, so I'll show you where you can fit those. Here you have a token that's got the person on it. That's your recruit tracker. You start with 6. Then you have a glory point tracker, which starts off to the side here because everybody starts with 0 glory. And then you have your dice. I'm going to set aside these tokens that we're not using for the moment. And I'm going to set the unused resistance leaders off there into the box. Now, to set the game up, I'm going to have the dice right there for the moment. And because my cards kind of mixed together a little bit, I'm just going to take a moment to separate them. You have a mission pile, a C'est la guerre, which is like your guerrilla tactics deck, if you will. And you have an event deck. Finished assembling the mission deck because they mix together a little bit. Now the mission deck, this is where you get the missions that you're going to run to earn either recruits, prevent the loss of recruits, or gain your glory. So you could shuffle these up, just give them a little shuffle. Alright, just pretend I shuffled better. And you're going to set these cards here off to the side. During setup, after you've determined who the first player is, one thing the first player does is they're going to flip an event card. Now, this event card says, lull in the fighting. An air of deafening silence has broken out over France. No action. That means this event card would affect all the players during the entire turn, and that event card says nothing's happening. Now, there's a possibility that you could get like heavy casualties, lose 1 additional recruit for each building captured, for example, or each player loses a recruit. So there's a little flavor text and then something telling you the bad thing that's happening. Lose 1 recruit from a randomly selected resistance group. And then, of course, more lull in the fighting. So not necessarily good things that happen unless you get the lull in the fighting. So let's just, oh, okay, well, after looking through, I now have Wehrmacht veterans. A train full of troops has come in from the Eastern Front. Undefeated German patrols and Panzer Grenadiers eliminate 1 extra recruit this round. Ooh, that's bad. So if we encounter any German patrols or Panzer Grenadiers, we need to make sure that we eliminate them so we don't suffer additional losses. Now, your mission deck is probably going to be out in the middle of the board where everyone can see it, and you're going to have 3 mission cards available for you. When it's your turn, you're going to take the 6 white dice and you roll them, and now this is where the dice management aspect begins. I'm just going to line up my dice. Now, the way you spend your dice is you look at your mission cards, and I'm going to, let's see here, rotate that a little bit, make that a little straighter there. Okay, so what you're going to do is look at the dice here on the card. That tells you the dice you need to spend to defeat that card. And when you defeat a card, there's going to be either rewards or penalties. So these rewards here, they kind of have like a grayish greenish little faint background, and like if it's a little person, there's a green plus if you earn, and if you see stars, you earn glory, or you can earn recruits. Here I could win possibly 3 glory points and 1 recruit. Here, if I destroy the communications hub, I could get 4 glory. If I stop this gendarmerie, German sympathizer, if I don't defeat it, I will lose a glory and I will lose 1 recruit. So you don't always get something when you defeat a card, but you can prevent loss. Now, this is not a German patrol or a Panzer Grenadier unit, so if I was really more interested in the glory points, I could maybe actually not spend my dice here and go ahead and just focus on these cards. So that's where the dice spending comes in. If it's a white die, that means you have to spend exactly that die or higher to, conquer that spot. If it is a black die, like here, I have to, it's the sum of dice. So I could take like these 2 3s, and that would satisfy the requirement for one of the number 5s. Then I would have to take maybe this 4 and 5, which would be 9, and that would take care of the other black 5, and then that would be a white 5, and that 6 would cover the other black or other white 5, and I would be able to buy just that 1 card. And if I was okay with losing a glory, so I would end up getting 3 glory, because this would require me to lose a glory, and then I would lose 1 recruit off my tracker. So that's where your planning comes in. What are you willing to lose? What's the gain? Or like if I got this card here, the POW camp, I don't have enough dice to buy both. But I could buy this one, and that recruit that I would gain, I would lose here. I would earn 3 glory, but lose 1. So I would essentially just gain 2 glory and not lose any soldiers, or gain 3 glory and lose 1 soldier. So if you're at the very beginning of the game and you got 6 recruits, you might say, that's an acceptable loss to lose 1 recruit, because that's going to put me 3 glory on the board, right? So decisions. Now you have another decision. There's actually several decisions that you can make here with your dice. If you roll a 6, that's an exploding die option, which means before you use this die for anything else, you have to decide, do I want to purchase one of these blue dice? If you purchase a blue dice, that's an additional, like a bonus die that you can roll. Now, the good thing is, it's like a free die, but that's good. But the bad, right? There's usually a bad. The bad is if you roll a 1 on your extra blue die, you lose a recruit. So this has a little bit of a push your luck element as well. So sure, I rolled a 6. If I was happy with these results and figured I could do everything I want with the cards, maybe I don't need this blue die. But if I'm really trying to push and capture several of these cards, I may risk it and buy this blue die. So let's say I did that. I say I'm going to buy a blue die. Now you get to keep that. I rolled a 6. Now that doesn't explode and let you buy another die. You got a blue one. Then she has an ability. It says aggressive. Gain a 6 by forfeiting 1 resistance member. Well, let me see if that would do any good. So if you remember, we could spend like all these dice and clear that one card, because that would cover that. This would cover this here, and then the 5 and the 6. But this one blue die, let's refigure what we could do here. I could actually go and take this here, because that's a 6, that beats that. Well, actually, I don't need to play, I don't know what I was thinking. I don't need to spend that 4 and a 5 to equal 9. This is a 5, 5 and 5. Trust me, I was just looking at the dice, I wasn't actually thinking it through. But now I'm thinking it through. It's like, oh, okay, I could take that. I could play this 6 here if I want. I could play this 5. And I can play this one here. That gives me a couple dice here, which, watch what I'm going to do. If I then sacrifice a person, bloop, I get that 6 that I could spend, so I could cover up that one. And then with my remaining dice, I could do a 3 and a 3 here. Now, when you buy a card, you're going to kind of flip it like that. And with my exploding die result and using my aggressive resistance leader ability, I prevented the loss of a glory point, prevented the loss of a trooper beyond this one, and I earned 4 glory. Alright, so let's say that's what I decided to do. I'm not saying that's the best idea, I'm just saying that's what I did for, demo. I'm going to then put these in a discard pile off to the side, replace the missions, and play would go to the next person, and the next person would be under the effect of this event, and they would roll their 6 dice. So we'll pretend there's another resistance leader. Ooh, I got 2 6s. Oh, but see, a bunch of these 2s, if you look here, I've got no black dice available, so these 2s are just useless to me, because I can't add them up to cover anything. But I did get 2 6s, so I'm going to buy 2 blue dice. And hopefully that was not any better. So that didn't work out for me. So this particular player really has to think about what they can do. I could get a POW camp, could just go for recruits. But if I look here, recruits is going to give me the most bang for the buck. I'm going to get a recruit, and I'm going to get 3 glory. Now the nice thing is, any card that you don't defeat carries forward. Right. So I could just keep, yeah, I'll just buy this one. I mean, okay. And I'm going to get 3 glory. Well, if this was a different player, I'd have 3 glory. They would start at 6 people. They'd gain a recruit. They'd be up to 7. They would flip this card, discard that because it's done, flip one out here, and the next player goes. And that's pretty much how you go around the table. And yeah, this has a lot of really good decision points for you, because it's having you decide about your kind of a push your luck element with your blue dice. You've got just the dice rolling element, so that becomes kind of a resource management. You have the special abilities of your resistance leader, which can affect the game. You can buy these cards here, for example, if, let's say, your dice rolls were terrible. Like I had that 2-2-2, for example. That's not the end of the world. I couldn't buy anything really with these cards, but if I add them up to a 6, I could purchase one of these cards, like the little resistance leader cards, and I could get like exposed, because you would draw, right? You just draw. And if I drew this one, I drew camouflage. I could ignore one attack, and I could spend this to get a 4 on something. Or if I drew this one, sacrifice. trade a recruit for a 6 that I could spend on trying to get a card. Another thing you could do with your not quote-unquote usable, they have a list here in the back of the rule book. Couple things that you could do. There's sowing dissension. What that means is if you spend a total of 6 on your sum dice, you can remove 1 recruit from a selected leader and add it to your band. You have the card that you could buy. Again, you got a total to 6. There's also stealing glory. You could take 6, again, add up to 6. So these, really low 3s could add together, and you could steal a glory point, or you could then duck and run. So this will allow you, it says whenever you're required to lose a recruit, you may duck and run, losing 2 glory points instead of saving the recruit. So no dice for that one, but you could sacrifice glory to save the loss of a recruit. So even if you roll poorly or things look grim, there are a couple of additional moves you can do to help you minimize loss or minimize a bad roll. So that's the game in a nutshell. So a couple questions would be, well, could you play with 6 players? Maybe. The game says 3 to 5, but you do get 6 resistance leaders. With 6, that might bog it down a bit. It might make it hard to, have, I don't know. You probably could. I'll just say that. I know people that would be more than happy to play this with 6 players, but it is designed initially for 3 to 5. Does that mean you could play it with 2 players? Yes, you could play it with 2 players. 3-player gives you more of that tension, but 2 people definitely could play the game. And I have played it several times as a 2-player game. You just miss out on some of that interaction of trying to, steal recruits and things like that. But you can play this as 2-player. Can you play it solo? Well, you probably could play it solo. Now, as far as just running it with 1 resistance leader, that might be challenging because then you're just trying to win enough cards that you don't run out of recruits and you just get yourself to 12 glory points. That would be one way to play. Or you might have to play solo where you, as 1 player, are running maybe 2 or possibly the 3 resistance leaders, so you meet that 3 to 5 player. Could it be done? Sure. But there isn't like a dedicated AI to this for solo. So just to give you some ideas there on potential play. And that's the game in a nutshell. Like I said, it has received a lot of praise. It is really fun. Even though it has kind of this World War II theme attached to it, the fact that it's more of like a dice management game, it's actually brought in players that aren't war game players, and they've enjoyed it very much. When we were at Origins, I'm going to clean up a little bit while I finish up my thoughts here. When I was at Origins, sitting at a table, a couple of little kids came by and they sat down, and I was like, "Well, do you want to play a game or see a game?" And the one who was answering, she said, "No, we're just tired, so we just want to sit." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but if you're going to sit, at least play a game." And this is the game we had out at that particular table. And so she was like, okay. And we started to play. I explained the basics of the game to her. And her dad came by and asked, are you ready to go? And she said, no, I'm playing this game. I'm liking this. And the dad actually came back a couple of times just to see if she was ready to go. And she said no, she wanted to play all the way to the end because she was really liking it. And I thought that's great. This is a game that just kind of takes you beyond the theme, and you really kind of focus on the actual gameplay and mechanics. So thoroughly fun. And as we get closer, you're going to see, if you go to the flyingpiggames.com website, you'll see that there is, our page is up, and there's some videos on there talking with some folks. There's at least, I know, one off the top of my head with the Player's Aid. I thought there might be one with Rob Oren and Jeff Mackler. They kind of talked to Mark about it. I don't remember exactly who all was on there. But a couple folks that gave some thoughts because we demoed it for them. And you can kind of see what they thought of it. So definitely check this out. And like I said, I don't know when the Kickstarter is going to go live, but keep an eye out for it. I don't think this is going to be reasonable or like priced unreasonably. I think it's going to be a fairly good price point to get into it. And the turnaround time should be fairly quick. So definitely keep an eye out on this. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. And hopefully we'll see you later in the Resistance. Bye.